What is up, you amazing people? It's Nima here, and today we're going to look at a game called Faerie Afterlight. So this is a game that I think has been overlooked a little bit. It's something that hasn't been just popping up all over people's radars or anything. And if I'm being honest, when I saw it as well, I was looking at it and it looked really good. In fact, the aesthetics are actually why I reached out to the publisher to get a review copy. But my biggest concern with the game is the fact that it's a Metroidvania. And I think even fans of the genre would agree that it's been a very hit or miss year. And for me, I don't really even like Metroidvanias. Now, to be clear, I mean, is like my go-to genre. I'm not saying there's no Metroidvanias I like. No, there's quite a few I do like, but for me, it's the most difficult genre to really get into. And I feel like this year specifically, there's been more either mediocre or bad Metroidvanias than there has been good. Yeah, like something like Tiny Thor makes the whole genre look awesome, but for me, there just seemed to be more of the Disney Illusion Island type games, and even Blasphemous 2, which I enjoyed. A lot of fans of the series didn't really like it. So let's get into Faerie Afterlight and see if this game is worth playing, or if it's just another one of those mediocre games. But first, I have to ask all of you guys to please hit that like and subscribe button. It really helps the channel out a lot, and we would really appreciate it. Looking at Faerie Afterlight, the story is quite vague, and it starts off with your character being vague as well. In fact, you don't even have a name, or a body, or a memory. You do, though, have a guiding voice that seems to talk to you every now and then, and these very cryptic messages, where they don't actually give you any details, but they kind of keep pushing you forward. And early on, we meet a fairy by the name of Wispy, who then dubs us Kimmo. And this scrappy Tinkerbell tells Kimmo about the corruption that is spreading all over the world, and how each biome is sort of controlled by a titan that keeps balance in that world, and how these titans are being corrupted by this evil, this presence that they're really unsure of, although they can see the corruption all over the land, and they know what's happened to these titans, who are typically protectors and care for their people, are now the same ones attacking their people and becoming incredibly catastrophic and angry. So it is our job in our mind to fix this problem. We're gonna hang out and stick with our friend Wispy, not only to help her stop this corruption, but in the hopes of learning about ourselves. We feel that these two goals could be aligned, or maybe even one and the same, as the cryptic voice does tell us about this corruption. It does warn us about some of this, and maybe even shed some light onto who we really are. So it's a win-win for Kimmo and Wispy as they start their adventure. Now, this is really where the game takes off, and we're able to then explore more, find and purchase upgrades, as well as be able to learn new skills. The thing that's most important about a Metroidvania, at least to me, and especially one like this, is controls. Because this game is what my friend Trick called a spike game. And yes, there are a lot of spikes, and these spikes will insta-kill you. So if you mess up a puzzle, which there are plenty of that involve platforming, or you just slip off of the platform, you're pretty much insta-dead. It's not the type where you can find yourself in the spikes and then you can jump back onto a platform with only losing a heart or so. No, like I said, instant death. And if I'm being honest, I agree with Trick. I don't like these type of games either. It's kind of annoying that one misstep could have you dead. But luckily for us, there is a very important caveat with that, and that is controls and something else that I just like to call character feel. The way the character feels. Yes, there's some where you're platforming and it just feels like you're about to slip off the platform every time you make a jump. But this character does not feel that way. No, Kimmo feels almost like a hybrid slug, if you will. Like a slug that really got into jazzercising or something. Like he's got a lot of agility and he's got some ups to him, but he also is just like grounded. Like you really don't feel like you're gonna slip off a platform anytime. And it should definitely be noted that the controls are incredibly tight and just feel smooth. They just feel right, you know? Like you feel like you can control the arc of a jump, which is incredibly important. And as I said, as soon as he lands, you don't feel like you're gonna keep going. You don't feel like you're gonna slip off the edge. Although if you do, you're quickly transported back to the platform that you were just on. So it's not as bad as I think a lot of them are, where it's just over and you go back to your last save or something like that. No, it's the equivalent of just like falling into nothing in a lot of other games. Another reason why I think these kind of deaths aren't so problematic is, well, because you're just transported back really quickly. The loading screens are pretty short, and you are aided by an abundance of save points. So even if you do die, you're not taken too far back. Now, most of the game itself, as far as level design, and level makeup doesn't have you fighting a lot as it does have you navigating, and it has you solving platforming puzzles. At the same time, I have to say too that one thing I don't like about Metroidvanias is the fact that I always feel like I get lost in them, and that has not been a problem at all with this game. It's really nice because early on in a stage you will always meet somebody who will give you a map, and the cool thing too is not only do you get the map, there is a little indicator at the top of the map that lets you know how much you've explored. So if you really want 100% it and just find everything, or if you're kind of curious how close you are to the end, you have that little indicator. But I don't want to be mistaken. There is a lot of combat in the game, and there are some epic boss fights. I'm not saying like in an entire level you'll never run into a random enemy. No, that's not the case at all. I'm just saying there's not as much as one would think. And there is some truly fun, epic boss battles that feel challenging yet fair. And not to mention the fact that just attacking with Kimmo feels really good too. He has this very wide-ranging swipe that it almost feels like the perfect distance to be able to attack somebody. Honestly, they found a sweet spot with Kimmo. It's a very simple little attack, but it just feels right. And as time goes on, you actually can upgrade, get different skills, namely for Wispy, but these will translate into skills for you as things like being able to shoot projectiles and things like that will help you in combat. But those aren't the only skills that you get. In fact, there is a smorgasbord of skills for Kimmo and Wispy, as Kimmo can learn things like a jump dash or wall jumping, and most of these can be acquired by beating the Titans. Also, Wispy though develops her own skills as time goes on, as you're able to get things like the ability to control platforms. You can actually move where they go. Now, this isn't all of them. You're not going to have to arbitrarily look through for platforms that you can move. You're given an indicator, which is nice because this is also part of the puzzle solving. There will be platforms that almost work like a light switch, that when you turn one on, the other ones will go off and become translucent. And this itself is another form of puzzle solving. Not to mention the fact that the spikes are also in that form as well. Not always, but on some of the platforms, as to get from point A to point B, you have to send some spikes down, and at the same time, other spikes will rise. And if some of that sounds confusing, don't worry, because they really present it in a very digestible manner. You can figure out exactly what you're supposed to do and how you're supposed to do it relatively easy, and that's coming from me, who's, let's just say, not very smart. There's one puzzle that had me for a little while, and it had to do with the type of platforms or areas that as soon as you touch them, they kind of became translucent, if you will, and you really just had to figure out what order to jump on them to be able to continue on. And the nice thing is that Wispy's interaction with the environment is pretty much done through one button, and that's your right bumper. And I like that, because even if you are a little bit confused, you pretty much know what to do. You have a good idea of where to start anyway. And speaking as somebody who has gotten to the very end of this game, it's always worked. I've never felt lost, and that is paramount to me, because in so many of these games, and even open world games, I just hate walking around my head cut off, trying to figure out where I'm supposed to go, how I'm supposed to get there, even what I'm supposed to do. And I never had that problem with this game, which is another reason why I just really like it. Graphically speaking, I think it looks really good. I appreciate the fact that it plays off of this whimsical environment, yet walks this thin line of being too charming and not enough creepy, as you get both aspects of that. You get this incredibly interesting world that you want to know more about. You want to explore. You want to know exactly what the heck you're doing and where you're at. But they also make it creepy, and there's also that element of danger about it. So yeah, for me, graphically, the art style, all of that just works, and it works well. Performance-wise, the game is smooth. The game just runs like it should. No crashes, no stutters, very responsive, tight controls, all of those things that we need in these type of games, or any game really, but they become paramount when it's a Metroidvania or a platformer. I think the only thing that people might have an issue with would be the price. It is a little bit pricey. After playing this though, I could tell that the team painstakingly put this game together with care. They really wanted to make a good product, and that's exactly what they did. It didn't need any day one patches. Everything seems to come to life in this game. It seems like a very full experience. I'll put it that way. Nothing seemed to be phoned in with this one. When it comes to skill building, character development, level design, performance, all of that is here. And for me, it's worth it. I would say that I would give this game a solid 8.5 out of 10, and it is in the running for my best or favorite Metroidvania of 2023. So good, I really enjoyed it, but I'm curious what your guys' thoughts are. Have you played it? Have you heard of it? Is this something that you're thinking about getting? Are you thinking about getting it now? I don't know, anything and everything in the comment section, be incredibly appreciated. I love each and every one of you guys. Take care, everyone. Bye-bye.